Hey, we're going to be talking about les Indemodables today. If you speak a little bit of French, it's quite a fun word to say. I've been living with the Discovery set now, it's got to be 4 to 5 years. I bought it almost as soon as it became available stateside at Lucky Cent. There was some chatter at the time about this brand. Base Notes was doing a sample pass, so we're getting opinions from several different people as they explored the brand for the first time. Me being a bit greedy, I ordered a set for myself. I guess I don't like to share when it comes to samples, I'm sorry. So why haven't I made a video sooner? One, it's partly out of laziness because there are quite a few fragrances here to talk about. Two, I feel like they've been well covered by other reviewers whose opinion I respect. And three, as you can see here, the empty screen, none of them turned into bottles except for one. So I would say the reason I haven't talked about them isn't because I hate them and I'm afraid to bash the brand, but it's also not because I love them or feel really passionately excited about any of them enough to feel like I have a lot to say about them either. So it's this sort of in-between feeling I have about the brand that kind of made it difficult for me to formulate any thoughts that I thought would be worth sharing. So we'll get into the brand here. I'll say, I guess, overall, they do smell really high quality. Among all the other kind of niche offerings out there, I do think they stand above most of them. I like their overall purpose. I like that they really work to get ingredients ethically and really work on the ingredient side of things, and the transparency of listing percentages of ingredients. I think all that's great. I don't think it's fake, empty marketing in any way. I think it's really part and parcel of the brand's mission and the brand's aesthetic. So they all go together. They all make sense together. It doesn't seem like some manufactured attempt to sound ethical or sustainable. I think they're the real deal in that sense, and I like what they're doing, and I like their approach. Well, let's get into the one bottle I do have because I've discussed it before, which is one from their cologne series, Escal Indonesi. I really like this. I think it's decently priced. It is cologne strength, so it's not super dense and long lasting, but it's really unique among the other colognes that I have. I'm actually going to go straight on skin with this one. What's especially unique about this is that it has some ambergris as the base, and you get a really nice, bright, almost to me like coniferous, like the freshness of juniper without smelling like juniper up front. Not the kind of citrus neroli type cologne scent profile that is more typical of like a 4711 or Neroli Portofino. It feels more blue and salty and oceanic than that, less sort of orange and sunny as the typical cologne profile. So I really like the opening. You do sense, a little bit, there's a pronounced saltiness to it, and the musk it leaves behind on the dry down is really lovely, sort of salty, mineralic. I swear there's a good dose of ISO-E. Maybe I'm wrong, but it has that same quality of like very sheer and transparent sort of wafty woodiness that lasts quite a long time while still remaining very, very sheer and just like at a low level of perception. But I really like it. It's unique among the other cologne style fragrances I have, and for me, that's a pretty big dent, actually. I really, really enjoy this one. So Escal Indonesi. Now, I bought the sample set back before they'd released several of the more recent ones. So it's a little incomplete, but I do have samples that I sourced from other places since then. I believe they've updated it. It looks a bit nicer these days, but it comes with this little information booklet. So let's just see what you've got. You'll see most of these are well worn and nearly empty. So coincidence, Escal Indonesi. So this is the vetiver based cologne. Don't ask me why I have an entire package of these Guerlain Patchouli Paris blotters, but I'm sorry, I'm going to use these up here. So this one, also nice. clean, transparent, light vetiver. It's just a little bit less interesting to me than Indonesi. I really love that salty ambergris accord, but also very pleasant. If you like something like Comme des Garçons Vetiver, which is a similar idea of sort of a very light vetiver cologne. If you're the kind of person who has to wear something very low-key in an office or other environments, I think this would be great, or have both of them so you have two options to switch it up. Really nice, just pretty much does what it says. A nice, not really earthy or rooty in any way, but just fresh vetiver fragrance. More along the lines of the fresh, clean vetiver of Frédéric Malle Vetiver Extraordinaire, but simpler and a lot lighter than that. So that was the other cologne, Escal on AT. And these are really nice deals. I like that they give you a break on the price for the lower concentration, and they give you twice the juice with 100 mils. I'm not sure what they're up to these days, but I'm pretty sure with a little bit of a promotion, I got this in like the $100-$150 range. So let's keep going on. Well, you'll see this was one of my favorites, and one that's still kind of on my to-buy list, Musc de Sable. So as it says, a musk-based scent. I believe it checks iris and also ambergris as providing the musk accord. I've got their website here, so let's take a quick look. Green mandarin, patchouli, ambergris tincture, Orris Absolute. I'm spot on the money. What I like about this one is that it's, it gives me the sense of like a cold cream, like a French, those creams. I don't know if there's a more specific name for it, but they have a cool feeling even when they're at room temperature. They're sort of a little bit gelatinous. It smells like that. Really beautiful musk, irisy. I would say powdery if it wasn't so creamy, because again, powder and cream are kind of on opposite sides there. I don't recognize mandarin, but there's a freshness in the opening. I remember from previous wearings, it does have a little bit of like an animalic purr, but not that much. This is not a really animalic musk, but it's more of like just like a powdery, creamy musk. I'm repeating myself. You can see I don't have a whole lot else to say about it, but I do really like this. This is actually the top of my list of to buy from the house, based on previous wearings, but it's actually been a while since I've worn this. But there's a little bit of a sweetness in there, very round and smooth. Maybe the reason I haven't bought it is I do have a lot of other musks, although once again, like I said about Escal Indonesi, this one is different. It doesn't smell exactly like any of the other musks in my collection. Going on with another fan favorite here is Rose de Jamal. This one as well, I've nearly, not used up as much. You can almost gauge how much I like each one by the content. Again, I like this, but it's like a loveless marriage. Like, you're there, I don't mind you, but I feel nothing. So many times I've revisited this after watching an enthusiastic video raving about how this is just the best rose on the market. And I spray it, and for a few minutes I think, ooh, that one's nice. And then a few minutes later I think, I remember why I didn't buy it. The opening has a pronounced minty, almost camphorous aspect, with some of the kind of like red berryness I associate with rose, and then a cedar backbone. And that's ultimately what kind of ruins it for me, is a lot of the wear to me seems just dominated by a fairly simple cedar smell. Again, it's not a bad smell, it's a smell I enjoy, but it's a little simple. There's a quality to this and some of the others of smelling a little bit like, in America we say granola, someone who wears Birkenstocks and shops at, maybe Whole Foods before it was bought by Amazon. That's no longer so granola, but almost literally the smell of those kind of like small town health food stores. And it's an odd thing because I do think Les Indemodables compared to like indie or artisanal brands is a much more professional operation. It doesn't none of them have that sort of indie gludge or goop smell about them. They smell refined. They smell well made. They're obviously perfumed by a master perfumer who knows what he's doing, and produced by people who know what they're doing with ingredients. So it's not in that sense, but a little bit in the way of like just kind of throwing together some essential oils that smell nice, but not much else. So to me, the elements of this don't necessarily come together into something that's like a greater whole, a whole that's greater than the individual parts. The individual parts are nice, and they're just kind of there, in my opinion, with that one. I'm curious to smell the new extract to see if I like that any better, but I often have this idea that somehow I'll like a different concentration more of a perfume that I don't particularly like, and it almost never works that way. I kind of think if you already like the perfume, then try the other concentration, but don't look for it to change your mind. But who knows? Okay, going on. We've got Cuir de Chine. This one is osmanthus based, from what I remember. And actually, in terms of my thoughts on it, very similar to Rose de Jamal. I really like the opening, smelling it right now. Very bright, you get that really fruity, peachy aspect of osmanthus. They list Egyptian late crop jasmine, Chinese osmanthus, Turkish mild tobacco absolute, and clary sage from the Alps. Again, really nice opening. Almost feels like you could eat it, or if you've ever had like a fruity flavored bubble tea or gummy, it has that sort of aspect. Not a million miles away from Osmanth Yunnan by Hermes, but I have to say I like that one better. I like the tea aspects of that. They bring a nice contrast. And again, going from memory, it's been a little while since I wore this one. I really like the opening, but then again, I found the dry down just a little bit simple. Like, it's a few nice ingredients that do smell nice to each other, but they just don't move me in any way to rush to buy a bottle. But lovely for sure. See, I'm kind of convincing, I do this every time, convincing myself again when I smell the opening. But in a few hours, I'll kind of be like, I'll forget about it all over again as well. So that was Cuir de Chine. Let's move back a little bit for a better view. All right, this video is going to take forever. Another nearly empty one, and another musky one, and another one that's been on my to-buy list for many years. Iris Pearl. This is a bit of an unexpected iris as well. It's not that Chanel powdery iris. If you're looking for that more sort of classic French iris, I would look towards Musc de Sable first. This is more of like a soapy, clean iris. If you're into such things, it does lean feminine, but it also just smells clean. So I think really anybody could wear it. But it's not Chanel iris at all. Again, it kind of reminds me of just like a pleasant hand cream, a nice hand cream, but not like a hand cream that has any particular scent. It's just hand cream scent. But I do like a musky, clean fragrance. And I remember a few instances of wearing this and just really enjoying the dry down, enjoying the way the musk wears as it goes. Let's see if there's anything of interest. Mimosa, yeah, mimosa. It's easy to agree once you see it on paper, but definitely I think that's what's giving that kind of lotiony, vaguely floral, but not really pollen-y, not creamy, not like creamy floral or indolic or yellow floral. But yeah, as mimosa tends to go, more of this kind of just like powdery floral essence. Jasmine, ylang, and clary sage, along with orris butter. It's really interesting. I wonder how they extract their iris, because it's so different than my experience of iris. It doesn't have any sort of like rooty or vegetal connotation. Yeah, it doesn't smell like the iris I know. Of course, that doesn't mean they're not using iris. Of course they are. But it's just it seems like a different extraction than I'm used to. So again, enjoyable, but doesn't move me. Chypre Azrul. This one really confuses me. Maybe I don't know my fragrance history well enough, but I have no idea what makes this a Chypre. Doesn't smell anything like other things that have been called Chypre. But let's see. Yeah, orange oil. That's what really dominates, like a really freshly squeezed orange oil. And again, I'm getting that sort of health food store vibe where there's just like, there's a juice bar in the front and they're juicing some oranges, and there's various herbal remedies and oils in the back. Patchouli, I've never noticed any patchouli in this. Amber infusion, interesting. Egyptian rose, tarragon oil. Yeah, so I get a very bitter, pithy orange and sort of herbs, the tarragon, out of this. And that's, again, kind of it. Again, just kind of a couple ingredients that smell nice, but don't really come together into like a perfume. But again, I think this is these are stylistic preferences. It's hard to say any of these are bad. They all do smell good, but it's like a really boring string quartet played beautifully on Stradivarius violins. You can't deny just the beauty of the sound, but what's coming out is just a little bit like wallpaper. Okay, so that was Chypre Azurol. Not sure what Azurol means. Okay, so here we go. More. Fougère Emeraude. Another one named after a classic genre where I don't get the connection. I'm sure there is one and it just goes over my head. But this one is a minty tuberose. This I like. I'm liking right now. Once again, they do a great opening. I think because of the high amount of naturals, it's not like the designer fragrance like gotcha opening where it's like a really nice opening and then some droney aroma chemical. No. But the inclusion of a high amount of naturals, I think, is a real like bracing three-dimensionality to the fragrances, especially at the opening. And in some ways that may be their downfall. Now, these are not all natural fragrances. They've never advertised that. I'm sure they use it's a mixture, as most great perfumes are. But especially the openings do have this really nice and really impressive naturalness to them that, yeah, the best way to describe it is three-dimensionality, like realism, smelling a real orange, smelling a real tuberose. This is an interesting take on tuberose. Actually, smelling this again, as you can see, I haven't worn this one all that much. This one came broken in the mail, so my entire package smelled like it for a while, and they sent me another one. This was from Lucky Scent, by the way. So that's another reason this one's quite full, because I had this smell kind of all over for a while. So Emerald, I don't know. I don't get anything green. I don't get anything fougere. To me, it's just a tuberose. And tuberose does have these camphoraceous mentholated elements. Of course, famously, Serge Lutens' tuberose criminelle really emphasizes those. But it can also be found in Cardinal Flower, which has often been described as like a cold florist's fridge. So it's territory that's been visited before. Here again, yeah, the distinguishing factor is that kind of that nature store construction to me. So let's see if we can find this one. Indian tuberose, French lavender, Moroccan mimosa flower, Venezuela tonka bean, clary sage. So no mint or any minty thing listed. Maybe it's a combination of the lavender giving like a herbaceousness or the particular quality of tuberose that they've used. Out of all of them I've re-smelled right now, this is standing out as one I want to revisit. Moving on, I told you there's a lot. Oriental Velour. So velour is like velvet. So I completely forget this one. Oh yeah, so this one is the myrrh. Also nice resinous. It has that three-dimensionality. I often get from certain resins like myrrh, sometimes labdanum, what I think of like a soapy element. versus like the more like smoky, goopy take on resins. This is more clean. Really nice opening as well. Again, I kind of place this similar to my experience of, what was it, of Cuir de Chine. Yeah, I keep repeating myself, but I think especially in this first batch of fragrances, I kind of have the same take on all of them, and that's why I found it difficult to really gather enough thoughts to feel like putting a video together. Lovely opening, nice smelling ingredients, and kind of that's it. I don't know. I remember in past wearings as well, kind of feeling meh about the dry down. And it's not that it doesn't last or that it disappears or that it goes down sort of like a typical dry down. It's none of that. That's again why it's kind of hard to put your finger on. It's just that it doesn't feel like it comes together into a real beautiful composition. And composition is what we are here for. So one of the newer ones, Pulinoisette. This one I got from Indigo, another great little independent shop where you can buy a little sample pack for a decent price. Unfortunately, these do evaporate, and so I need to use this. Yeah, ooh. It's got a little bit of that kind of smoky Frederic Malle Monsieur Amber Extreme, but just a little bit, like way underdosed compared to the Frederic Malle. I remember wearing this and actually being surprised that in the dry down it went more towards that sort of scratchy, dry, very dry hippie patchouli smell. Right now though, this is not how I remembered it. Maybe it's condensed a bit in this since I'd said these did evaporate, because I remember it feeling quite sheer at the opening, but then that patchouli kind of came up and lasted a long time. But this only lists patchouli and hazelnut. I would struggle. I would be lying if I said, oh yeah, I detect the nuttiness. I don't. To me, it's like if Frederic Malle made a cologne strength of Pour Monsieur. It's not as hardcore as that, but it has something of that like sort of like burnt gasoline nature, which actually is making me like this. I'm wanting to maybe give this another go as well. And that's part of why I'm doing this video. A lot of these fragrances have been on my mind and on my shopping list. So I kind of wanted to revisit some of them and see if it's time to pick one of these up. But as you can see, they've been on my mind and I've retried them several times and I still didn't buy a bottle. So infer from that what you will. And the final newer release I have, just a little lucky scent dabber here, is Orange Sirocco. One I was actually very excited about because I love a well done orange blossom, especially at this time of year right now. And I have just doused this sheet in it. I tried it at Scent Bar and I was kind of like, meh. But I think it's a little light for that situation. I did spray it on my skin back then. I wore it once from this vial recently, a couple weeks ago. Again, it's not like a mind-blowing, or like, wow, that's a beautiful orange blossom. But it's a very satisfying wear. Sometimes orange blossom goes down like a sort of honeyed, sickening route, which I do not like. It doesn't do that. This stays, again, it's kind of in the same like corner as Iris Pearl, and that the overall impression is mostly just kind of like a clean, nice, it's not soapy to me. It is neroli, it is orange blossom. It's really pleasant, and one that I'm really thinking about as we go into spring and summer. But again, not much to say about it. There's like a vague warmth, but if you compare this to what's the Guerlain Neroli Plein Sud, which I don't particularly love, but that one is a spice neroli. That's much more obviously spicy. Here, I'm sure the cinnamon's there, but I'm not sure what it's doing for the composition. But pleasant, really nice. I enjoyed the wear of it before, but again, I have a lot of neroli already in my wardrobe. We'll see how this card goes. It is fairly light, but I remember it being kind of having like a musky longevity to it, like sort of a clean, musky dry down that lasts. And last, and it's not here, RIP, is Amber Supreme, which I also had, and it dried up in an indigo. But really, I don't have much new to say about that. I think I like ambergris as a base for a fragrance, but as a theme, it didn't really work for me. It was just lacking stuff, just kind of an ambergris. And I feel the same about Iris's MXX. I have a sample of that too, and I fail to see what all the hype is about. But I do love it mixed with the citruses here, providing this mineral oceanic base to a cologne. But Amber Supreme was, again, a kind of like, that's nice, and then I forgot about it. So final thoughts. I really like the brand, and I really like what they're doing, despite some of the negative things I've said here today. I think what it really draws out, for me at least, is the importance of a creative director or creative direction. Because it seems like the theme or the idea behind all of these fragrances is just, hey, we have this nice ingredient, let's feature it. And that could be great in the hands of somebody who might be able to abstract that idea into something really wonderful. But for me, it kind of results in perfumes that fall a little bit flat, or are not really much more than just some nice ingredients. Well blended and well put together for sure. I'm a fan of Antoine Lee. I think what he's done professionally is amazing, how he's kind of gone rogue to just become an independent perfumer. But I really wish the line would bring in some other perfumers just to give the line more variety and different perspectives. I just imagine how great this line would be if you just let a lot of different perfumers have a crack at their ingredients library. And the final thing I'll say about creative direction is I haven't talked about these because I don't know him personally, but we watch each other's videos. I've watched Eugene for a long time, so I feel a little awkward talking about his line. But I do have them here, Les Abstraits. And I just wanted to point out, since he used Antoine Lee and the Les Indemodables sort of ingredients and manufacturing, the importance of a creative director really shows with his three compositions, because I think these three are much better than anything in the Les Indemodables line. And I think that's because he had a very strong vision and narrative behind the perfumes. Now, I'm not the kind of person who needs a narrative for every fragrance. Classic case, I love most Jean-Claude Elena Hermescence, which are usually just the name of two things, Poivre Samarcand, Épice Marine. But I think he makes something more than those two ingredients. He teases out something really interesting in the contrast between those two elements, and they just wear like a beautiful perfume. Whereas I feel like many of these, the elements, they don't clash, but they also don't really add up to something more interesting than the constituent parts. So I've said that a few times now, but that's really the only conclusion I can come to. But it is a brand I respect and one I will continue to try as they release fragrances. I will say their discovery set is extremely reasonably priced, and these are larger than normal samples. If anything, I would be down to buy a second discovery set when some of these start to run out. And I've just remembered that I do have one other special sample here. I was getting the FOMO, but it was a very expensive fragrance, and buying a very expensive fragrance from a house that hasn't exactly wowed me, it's kind of a silly proposition. And wow, it reminded me I nearly left off their bestseller. But we have Vanille Havane Cœur de Oud in sample form here. The reason I forgot their bestseller is because I was A-Bing with Vanille Havane, the original. So quickly, my take is the Cœur de Oud is actually very well done. It is oudy. I could smell the oud. It adds a dryness to the proceedings. When A-Bing them, Vanille Havane original had a much more fresh, I want to think of like wet tobacco leaves. It also has sort of an apple-y element, a lot like Hermès's Amber Narguilé, whereas the oud version seemed to be a lot drier, a little smokier. What I really liked about the oud was the smell the next day, or even several days later on the card. What's left was the oud, and it was a really beautiful, very dry, woody kind of smell. But in some ways, the oud makes it more masculine. It kind of reminds me of like a cigar, or like more of like a butch 80s fragrance, which isn't really my vibe. So ultimately, you know, if I won the lottery tomorrow, I would probably go buy it. But ultimately, I think I kind of convinced myself that regular Vanille Havane is more for me. But I do like the Coeur d'Oud, and you can see I'm still struggling thinking about it. Yeah, the oud is nice, but it's just overall it's a scent profile that doesn't feel like my personality, to be honest. Vanille Havane itself, again, it's been reviewed to death. It is nice. It's sort of a tobacco-y fragrance more than vanilla to me. It's not sweet at all. But also I kind of decided that I like Amber Narguilé better. I like the way it wears better. And so I'm not in a rush to go buy that, although I do think it's a nice fragrance, and I completely understand why so many people love it. So now I think I've said everything that I can about Les Indemodables, and I'll see you guys next time.